Like a moth to flame. Chapter 7. Gotham was a creature in and of itself. As Tim and Leo waited for his mystery contact to respond, they explored the Gothic town, and all Leo could say was, this place didn't feel real. The people were the weirdest part. No one took anything seriously. In his 2 hours of being on the streets of Gotham, Leo had witnessed 2 attempted robberies, and truly the people couldn't care less. Signal, who was apparently Duke, had dealt with the first theft, but for the second time, the man being robbed just walked on, unbothered. The robber stood there in disbelief, knife pointing at the cheeks reddening. It didn't take long for him to cower away again as people stared judgmentally. It was amazing. Even sitting in a cafe waiting for the order to arrive, there was so much personality to the city and its people. A young man sat in the corner making notes on a video of Superman fight. A father comforted his crying daughter by pretending to be a troll with funny deep voice. 2 middle-aged women stood outside the shop arguing about where Vicky Vale gets her dresses from. The city was alive and so different to what Leo had come to expect in this world. Everywhere you went, people talked about the next villain attack, but no one ever seemed on edge. With each attack, people became more confident in their own ability to survive, and that feeling was palpable. So, Tim and Leo were sitting in cafe, people watching. He won awards for that. People generally considered voting him mayor. Tim slipped in his peach mango smoothie. All of our old mayors keep turning evil, so honestly, he wouldn't be our worst. And at least he'd gone, Leo deepened his voice, mocking the news anchor impression. Boots on the ground of Gotham, tackling poverty head on. Yeah, Tim laughed, but being aware isn't enough to fix it. Leo agreed. No, it isn't, but it seems like you guys have a hard time trying to get a politician that doesn't murder people. We're not that bad. Well, we are, but there's loads of good stuff too. The other boy gestured to the world around them. Gotham is so great when you get the meat and potatoes of it. There's literally a dead rat at the door of this place. They'll pick it up eventually. The pair got through their food, prattling on about anything they could, and continued their tour of the city. Tim showed Leo his favorite spots, like Gotham City Park. Eventually, they made their way to the mall that had Tim's favorite shop in all of Gotham. The Photo Lab, a store for everything and anything photography. It's something I've always done, Tim explained to Leo, who was cycling through the different products. Felt naturally easy. It just came to you? Leo added. Yeah, and I liked it. More than anything. I didn't do it for a while. Things got too hectic, but I've been getting back into it recently. Tim then spoke like he was reciting a line he'd said too many times before. It's important to capture the honest image of the human condition. That's how we connect with people. We'll never know personally. Like an efficient lawyer, Tim talked through the cameras quickly and without doubt. He told Leo about the purpose of different lenses, the importance of composition techniques, like the rule of thirds, or how to capture photos during night, speaking from experience, apparently. He didn't speak like a man trying to entertain, or like a man in a conversation. It was a tour of Tim's passion, the sincerest expression of Leo was well acquainted with this feeling. Sometimes he had to be told to shut up from how much he would talk about Festus, inner workings, or whatever project he had floating about his brain. People at camp wouldn't admit it, but they had their own moments. Once Percy started talking about Annabeth, you couldn't get him to stop. Leo had always felt jealous when Percy would describe every small detail that he loved about her. He wanted someone to talk about him like that. Calypso didn't talk about him that way, but he accepted it. They were the ones no one wanted, so they took each other. Then the world opened up for her. Leo couldn't blame her for looking for better. It's not like he talked about her that way either. Sorry for going on about that. Tim fiddled with a lens cap, smiling awkwardly. Dude, you know way too much about cameras, and don't tell anyone I said this, but it's kinda awesome. I'm an amateur. I haven't shot anything in months. I'll be the judge of that. Leo linked his arm with Tim and started marching out of the store. Tim rolled his eyes. What happened to exploring every nook and cranny of this mall like it's an apocalypse? Ow! He looked around several stores, catching his eyes. Shopping first, but after that, you're definitely showing me those photos. When Leo saw something interesting, Tim bought it. When a woman got upset with Leo's presence in one of the more expensive stores, Tim showed up in all his Drake Wayne glory and shut her up. It was very weird. Very different, but not entirely unwelcome. Overall, it was a good time. A better time than Leo had in a while. But if there's one lesson to take away from being a demigod, never let your guard down. The lights turned off. Alarms rang through Leo's head. People didn't scream, but their running footsteps sounded like trumpeting wind, and the emergent light that started flashing, it was only bright enough to see the world in black and white. He saw Tim. Tim wasn't panicking. They locked eyes through the rush of crowd and made their way to the side of the mall, where it was quieter. What's happening? Leo never admitted it, but his voice went up 10 octaves. An attack. It could just be a hostage situation. Just a hostage situation? He watched as people slowly made their way back into the mall. People aren't leaving. We should try to get somewhere safer. Red Robin took over, and soon he was guiding Leo through the darkness. It wasn't a far cry from the focus Tim had shown earlier, but before was from passion. This was from necessity, and as much as Leo recognized the former, he recognized the latter. The pair kept to their task dutifully. The groups of people walking back into the mall became hordes of people running, and for the first time of the event, they screamed. As Tim walked ahead, Leo walked behind, but it became difficult when every noise around him began to shrill, screaming people, realizing the danger they're in. The people of Gotham didn't take anything seriously. To hear them finally scream, it was bone-chilling. It made him lose his balance, the sense of surrounding, and soon it made him lose Tim. No one could blame him. Anyone would make the same mistake. Everyone's scared right now. Leo was just one of the crowd. They would be fine. There was a whole family of superheroes here to look after them. It would be fine, even if people were hitting into him. The urge to cover his ears was strong, but he couldn't even lift his arms with the crowd. It was fine. He'd gotten used to ignoring that feeling anyway. He could pretend it didn't matter, but things kept escalating. It would have been fine if someone not banged into him so hard he fell. His efforts to not be crushed to death, he crawled to the walls. Then Leo smelled it, burnt flesh. Then he inhaled it, and it was salty smell of Infinity Island. As Leo ran through the closest door he could find, it became crusted, rotten bed sheets in his Tia Rose's house. Leo slammed the door shut. It was some kind of employee break room. Green fumes flowed under the door. He wouldn't dare open it until he knew it was safe. Right now, something was very wrong. Your powers would be quite useful out there. The voice hurt Leo's ears like a rupture. Ra's al Ghul had never sounded as clear as he did today. And as he sat so casually, arms draped around the terrible sofa that was barely big enough for two people. I can't go out there! It never mattered what defiance Leo made. Can't or won't. Ra's always knew what to say. It hurts! The older man scoffed. Powers that can save millions, and they've been given to a child that can't handle a little bit of noise. It hurts, Leo insisted, the voice becoming hoarse. Life hurts. We get over it eventually, and frankly, you were due this realization a long time ago. He said it like an indisputable answer. I already have! Leo stomped over to him. Fist clamped, but he froze before reaching the sofa. There was breathing over his shoulder. Familiar, rattled breathing. Roz glanced towards it, and that was all Leo needed. He turned to the charred face of his mother. She tried to speak, but her blackened jaw disconnected from her face. It hit Leo's foot on the way down. Not a sound came out of him. He wouldn't dare do that. Every time he breathed in, he could taste the soot. As his mama's body decayed, he stood stillest he'd ever been. Smoke came off the pile on the floor. Even bones were unrecognizable. You never learned your lesson. Roz was still talking. You still never thought to use your powers. All Leo could do was scream. In anger or in sadness, he didn't know. The tears were easier to figure out. He stared down at his mama. His eyes grew blurry with wetness. Everything came out at once. It was Roz's words, and then it was screaming, crying, his hands pulling on his hair painfully. Split flew out of his mouth, and through it all, he could feel the lack of control he had over his reaction. Hasn't that always been the case? Nothing ever in his control. Not his emotions, not his powers. Not this jerk who just wouldn't shut up. Maybe Leo's powers could help, but Leo couldn't. Roz was right about that, at least. These powers were given to the wrong person. His knees buckled, his back cracked from the force of hitting the sofa. He just couldn't stop wailing, and Roz wouldn't stop talking. Things don't have to be this way. You can learn to control it, to harness it. You never see a situation like this again. He sneered at the ashes on the floor. It's your choice to let it get the better of you. Leo's breathing became fractured. He didn't want to hear what Roz said next. All he knew is that his face was soaking wet and his knees hurt, and his hands couldn't grab anything tight enough to calm him down. Lightheadedness was only expected, but his active breakdown stopped him from relaxing enough to pass out. The cycle went. Vertigo, louder crying, stronger emotions, further hair pulling or arm grabbing or banging the sofa. No matter what he did, it was never enough. Through his shaking forearm and blurry vision, he never noticed anything around him. It felt sudden when a shadow cast over him. The creature above him was overpowering and bigger than anyone Leo had ever met. It didn't have a face, only red nothingness. The sofa was behind him. He had nowhere to crawl away. It made noises and moved, but Leo wouldn't have it. He's a demigod. He's dealt with monsters. He jerked sideways and ran to the kitchenette to look for a weapon. The thing released more garbled sounds. Closed door didn't even breach Leo's mind. It was part of the background now. He focused on the one task he could get his brain to think of, the knife in his hand. There was a moment of silence between the two, a stalemate neither side quite understood. The thing grabbed its skull and slowly disconnected it to reveal another face underneath. A man, not a creature. Leo didn't drop his weapon. Men can be monsters, too. It's all right, it spoke. Leo didn't want to hear it. He didn't make a slight movement. The man with black hair and a white streak in front of center, like Percy. Is it not the tactic of monsters to use familiarity to give you a sense of comfort? They wait till you've let your guard down and then strike. I'm not gonna hurt you. That's cliched. So cliched it's almost painful. I'm going to give you more space. He walked backwards toward the other side of the room. You can put down the weapon. Shadows covered the man's features. It made him shapeless, something unknowable. and anything unknowable can be threatening. Still, among the darkness, only feature gleaming brightly the man's fiery green eyes. They swirled like lava. Leo could feel the heat blasting from them. It was almost similar to... Leo glanced back to the sofa, but Roz was now gone. All that was left was the man in the green. The green enveloped him too, pure instinct taking over. When the flames licked the floor, the man jumped back, and when the knife in Leo's hand was completely covered, he was circling the boy like a big cat. And then it was over. As things usually go, Leo's head stopped ringing and he held clarity over his actions. The man seemed to notice and changed his stance. He asked, "Are you all right?" Leo nodded mindlessly. He put down the knife, staring at the now empty spot on the floor that had once held his mother's remains. "Can you turn off the fire?" Leo nodded again, but made no moves to do so. It was a safety blanket. It took away the bad thoughts. The man moved closer. His red face was actually a helmet. Oh my gods. "Jason?" Leo whispered, mortified. Jason steeled himself. "You..." He didn't finish his sentence. "Tim told me," the boy blurted out. "Tim said about you." "Tim? You know about us?" He sounded angry. Leo tried to subtly move closer to the door. "He's here." "He's here?" Jason scoffed. "He could have helped." Leo grabbed the door handle behind his back, and Jason's eyes caught the movement immediately. He continued softer this time. "Sorry, kid, I'm not gonna hurt you. Or Tim. These are scarecrow toxins. They're always difficult. Come on, I'll bring you to the meeting point." So Leo let the man bring him outside. The cool air felt nice, but the sweat on his body had turned cold at this point. He shivered intensely. Jason waited beside him as more civilians arrived. "Why are your eyes green?" He hiccuped between words, but he didn't care anymore. "Genetics." The man was gruff. "It's not genetics." Leo was certain. "And where does your fire come from?" That was enough of an answer for Leo. There was a pause, then Leo pivoted the conversation. "I could have helped people in there." "It's very easy to get lost in those thoughts, kid." "If I had just listened and used my powers, I would have gotten out of it sooner and I could have helped others." "Yeah, but you didn't, and that's normal. People aren't made to make perfect choices all the time." Choices. Was it a choice to not use his powers? Was it a choice to not use his powers on dead bodies Roz presented? It was a choice not to tell anyone about his powers until he absolutely had to. Did his choices even matter? Is it the right thing to let people stay dead, or is it the right thing to revive them? What does his choice matter if everyone's going to tell him something different? Leo wasn't the right person for these powers, so why should it matter what his choice was? Life is so much easier when he can pretend he doesn't have any powers, but that hasn't been an option for him since he was first arrived at camp. Tim made his way out of the building, still in his own civilian gear. He ran up to Leo. "You're okay?" He spoke with so much concern. Leo just shook his head silently and continued staring at the ground. "We'll talk about this later." Then he went on to talk to the paramedics on scene. Leo was so tired. Reader's notes: drink water, drive safely, encourage people to drive safely. I'm sorry for the terrible audio with this one, but the mic cut out halfway through recording and I didn't